Hey everybody, hope you've had a great week. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the support and the positive comments I've gotten on my previous video about mouthwashing. I know I mispronounced, I'm not exactly sure how to say Daisuke's name properly, but a few people in the comments corrected me on it, so I apologize about that. I'm going to look up, if I ever do a follow-up video, I'm going to do a lookup of how to properly pronounce that, so I apologize for that. But otherwise, I appreciate all of the engagement I've gotten. I really, anytime I step away from doing content that is directly related to Life is Strange, I get a little nervous about it. There have been times in the past where I've stepped away from the series to try and sort of broaden things, and it's either done really well or it's done pretty poorly. And luckily, this is an example of it doing very well. So this week, you'll notice that this video is a part 1 of 2. The reason for that is because I'm going to be going on Thanksgiving break soon, and with where I'm going, I won't be able to record. Over winter break, actually, you guys are going to see me record in quite a few different spots, which will be very interesting because I'm going to have to be editing on the road, recording, all this stuff. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a bit of a change of pace. I'm curious how it will work out. But basically, this is 2 parts because it just works better for my schedule, and I've noticed that, there's some people who really love my 40-minute long videos, and other people who prefer ones that are a bit shorter, so this will sort of be an experiment to see how well that does. But anyway, today's video is on Until Dawn. Until Dawn is a game that really set a new standard for narrative, choice-based games. Those games that a lot of people compare directly to movies or TV shows. And it actually has a very interesting development history. It originally started on the PlayStation 3 as a first-person game where it was actually controlled by the Move controllers, which would eventually be repurposed for the PlayStation VR, which I think is very interesting. It was developed by Supermassive Games, who would go on to develop The Quarry, among others. They've got a ton of them that are fairly popular. However, I personally believe that Until Dawn is probably their most polished one. And I know I'm a little late to the party with the remaster being out for a while now, but I figured, why not? I've had this script, I've been sitting on it for a while, but I got distracted with, it being October, and I wanted to hit on all these Halloween things and some scary stuff. So, yeah. So, without further ado, let's get into the history and the strange development of Until Dawn. Until Dawn started its development in 2008 as an early PlayStation Move title. It was supposed to be a mixture of Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, 2 very iconic horror movies. The development team was actually made up of people who were involved in other unreleased games, such as The Getaway 3 and 8 Days. So at this point in time, the Wii had been released and was doing numbers, the PlayStation Move had been announced, and they really wanted a killer app. And I feel like if you look at the Wii and then you look at the PlayStation, the target audiences are very different. The Wii is much more for your family-oriented, a family with kids, that sort of thing. It's kind of targeted towards a younger audience like that, whereas the PlayStation 3 has games like Call of Duty, other mature games like The Last of Us, which even though it hadn't come out yet, still, holds up because it originally released on the PlayStation 3. So they wanted to sort of target it at people in their 20s and sort of a co-op couch kind of situation, passing the controllers around, seeing what's going to happen next in the story, and that kind of thing. Basically, the same idea as you and a group of friends getting together to watch a horror movie and kind of chatting in between it. It's sort of it's an interesting concept. I feel like when a lot of game developers try to target an adult audience, sometimes it sort of loses some of its passion when you take something and you go, okay, let's do the Wii, but for 20-year-olds. Kind of how, for a time, they marketed the Nintendo DS as a console for specifically women in their 20s. It was kind of interesting. If you look at their marketing strategies, that's kind of a group that they really targeted, and that's a whole other very interesting can of worms. Or other things such as the very strange M-rated version of Mega Man that never released, the first-person shooter version, which that's also a whole other can of worms that is very interesting. A beta version was revealed at Gamescom 2012 with limited gameplay. That's stuff that you can actually find on YouTube. However, sometime after that, Supermassive was told to reconfigure the game for a PlayStation 4 exclusive. A lot of things changed when they made the jump. However, I do think it's interesting to look at the core of it and how much of it has actually stayed the same. So for this video though, we're going to be diving into the 2013 beta, which was fairly complete. At the very least, it has plot outlines for every chapter and a very fairly cohesive story that we're going to be able to read through today and discuss the differences with the original. I mentioned that a lot of the voice actors changed, and all of them did, with the exception of Mike and Chris's voice actors, and there's actually a very interesting interview with Mike's voice actor that talking about how when he sort of had to re-audition for the character, it was so much different because they were going for this sort of realistic movie style. And he said it felt much more like a real movie audition, sitting in a room in front of people, acting things out, as well as he mentioned how they would sort of say, because he's going to be in a volume, you know, doing motion capture, they would say, oh, and now there's a deer head, oh, and now there's this, and he would have to sort of react and improv. And it's a very interesting concept that they decided to pivot and treat this much more as a film audition, because if you look at the way this is stylized, it's clearly meant to be like watching a horror film like Scream. So first, let's start with Sam. So in the beta version of the game, Sam wore a black leather jacket with white accents over a purple shirt, a red scarf, a red plaid skirt, and gray boots with a fur hat. Which is a little bit different to what we end up getting, because in the final version, Sam's hair is tied up and the white details of her jacket have been removed. The interesting thing is when we come to Sam's personality. She's a lot more brash. She actually cusses a lot more, which I know that sounds like such a small detail, but it's very interesting. She's also the one to make more suggestions throughout the entire game, similar to how Mike behaves in the final game. She also openly flirts with Josh throughout, and that's interesting because it makes Josh uncomfortable. However, I think in the final version of the game, a lot of people, including myself, sort of ship these two characters of Sam and Josh, seeing that at the very least they have some sort of connection that's different than the rest of the group, and that Sam is a lot more understanding of Josh than the others. And the other interesting thing is that she still comes through as a reassuring and caring person. However, overall, she is a lot more brash and a lot more similar to Mike in the final version of the game. Her original voice actor was Megan Ray Manzi, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, and she was replaced by Hayden Panettiere. Oh gosh, I can't say that, but she's in Scream, she's awesome. Look, at this point you guys know I'm horrible with names, let's be honest here. So now we're on to Mike. Mike wore a flannel jacket under a dark blue vest, a white tank top, and cyan pants with yellow stripes on the sides. In the game trailer, some of the videos and old archive versions of the game, he had lighter skin and his hair was slightly longer. However, we know in the final version of the game, his hair is combed down and he has a little bit of stubble. Overall, his personality is very similar, but he has a much smaller role to play in the PlayStation 3 version of the game rather than the PlayStation 4 version of the game. We also mentioned that Sam kind of takes over some of his stuff in this early version of the game. His voice actor has always been Brett Dalton, whether it's on the PlayStation 4 version or PlayStation 3 version. As I said, he's one of two who managed to stay for both versions. So now we're on to Jessica. She wore a blue parka jacket, purple top, white t-shirt, and baggy purple pants. Her hair was done in two very simple braids, and in one version in the files of a beta, she wore a gray cap at some points in the game. However, that's not in like the main version of the beta, so it's sort of just a small detail that they probably just took out for, I don't know, performance reasons. I'm not really sure. Really, the only difference in her physical appearance from the final version to this beta version is that in the final version, her pants were blue instead of purple, and she had Dutch plates instead of simple. I think that means... The only differences in her appearance is that her pants were... I'm colorblind. By the way, somebody made fun of me in the comments of my last video being like, you gotta get your eyes checked. I am a little colorblind, okay? So cut me some slack here. In the final version of the game, her pants were blue instead of purple, and she wore Dutch braids instead of just simple braids. Her personality is pretty similar to both versions. However, in the PlayStation 4 version, she's a little more grounded. She's a lot less playful, which I think makes her feel more realistic. And also with this game trying to come across like a film, I feel like maybe toning her down a little bit works better, especially because she actually has one of the most interesting and disturbing Soul Survivor interviews because she was in the mines for such a big part of the game. It's very, very interesting and very chilling. Jessica's original voice actress and mocap actress was Tracy Wheeler. She was then replaced by Megan Martin when they switched over to the PlayStation 4 version. Now we are on to Matt. So Matt's physical appearance, he was wearing a blue and white Letterman jacket with an L on the right side and appeared to be wearing blue jeans. He looked older than the other characters and had shaved black hair. He also wore fingerless gloves. In the final version, as we know, he wore brown pants and his hair went from being shaved to short black hair and is visibly younger. And his gloves were removed. Thank God, because I don't think I could take him seriously with fingerless gloves. His personality, once again, is very, very similar. Emily is constantly talking down to him, if not maybe more in this beta version. And the story for him is exactly the same, with the exception of that deer herd scene. Matt was originally voiced and acted out by Gilbert Glenn Brown, and he was then replaced by Jordan Fisher when they switched to the PlayStation 4 version. Now, we're on to Emily. Emily was seen wearing a fur jacket over a black sweater and a silver necklace, and she had short brown hair and appeared to be Caucasian. This is in big contrast to the final version of the game where Emily was changed to be an Asian American teenager with black hair instead of brown. Her jacket had gone from a denim jacket to a black leather jacket, and her sweater is now gray. Emily is also another one of my favorite characters, not necessarily because I love her character, but because she's so well acted and so well performed throughout the whole game. I really enjoyed spending time with her and playing as her during the game. Emily's role is surprisingly a lot bigger in this version. She is overall very similar, bossing Matt around. She dislikes Jessica. Pretty much the same overall. However, in this version, she accompanies Mike to the sanatorium, and she goes with Sam to the mines. Also in this version, it appeared she had a very good friendship with Sam, and the two joke around a lot. Emily's original voice actress was Rachel Oyama. She was then replaced by Nicole Sakura for the final PlayStation 4 version. Once again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing any name. Now we are on to Ashley. Ashley wore a blue coat over a gray hood, a red shirt, blue denim shorts, dark leggings, brown boots, a pair of red striped fingerless gloves, a green rectangular ring on her right middle finger, and a silver medallion and a red cap. She had short black hair. In the final version of the game, Ashley's clothes are identical, but now she has longer red hair. This is very interesting. Ashley was meant to be, this is from the developers, a sort of drug addict type character, probably some sort of pothead or something along those lines. And she was also meant to be very much a comedic relief character, walking around the house, pretending like she's in an Agatha Christie novel. That's their exact words. And overall, like, this is made reference to in this beta version. However, she is very, very similar, if not more abrasive. She's still just as jumpy and scared, but you could take that as her maybe withdrawing. She hasn't had her weed in a while or whatever. And I think that's interesting because I feel like in all of the Friday the 13th movies that, you know, this is obviously inspired by, there's always some sort of druggy, you know, sort of, hey, let's chill out, man, type character. That sort of comedic relief character who gets, you know, killed in the first, 15 minutes. So now we're going to get on to Chris. Chris was seen as a blonde teenager, black glasses, a blue jacket over a green sweater, jeans, and brown shoes. He pretty much has the exact same look. And when I first played the game, I was much younger when it came out. I liked Chris solely for the fact that he was blonde and also wore glasses. I don't wear my glasses during my videos. I either have contacts or I just sort of squint at my script. But just because of the glare, I don't want anything reflecting like that. But I liked him purely for that reason. Now, I'm not a huge fan of him. The other thing I liked about him is the fact that his voice actor's name was also Noah. So he's always been played by Noah Flight. Dude, I don't know, man. Anyway, But overall, his personality was pretty much the same. Still very jokey, still sort of making jokes at the wrong times, which, boy, can I relate to that. Basically, the only real difference is he's a little more abrasive. He takes a few more shots at his friends, being more critical of them, rather than sort of innocently joking and then that backfires like his main counterpart. So Josh wears the same exact outfit that he does in the main game. The only difference is that he was clean shaven, and in this final version he has a bit more stubble. Obviously he's played by Rami Malek, who is a, amazing actor. It's frankly incredible that they managed to get him for a video game role, especially back in this time when, in my opinion, celebrities being in video games was a lot less common. Sure, you had GTA where they had a few stars in their games. However, those notoriously never really went well in terms of the actor's relationship with the game developers. This was really the first time, and someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but in my opinion, it feels like the first time where you really had a movie caliber cast in a video game, and it truly felt like film quality acting. So his personality, it's hard to say that his personality is the same per se, mainly because the PlayStation 3 version of the game does not delve into his mental state at all. For example, there's no Dr. Hill sequences, and there's no scene of Josh revealing that he is the Psycho, which takes away a big chunk of his character, in my opinion. That's sort of the thing to me that makes him very, very compelling, is how his loss of his sisters is what broke him and drove him to do these things. Real quick, we're going to get into Hannah and Beth. These are going to be a little quicker. Hannah was seen wearing a black tank top, black jeans, black boots. She had very short black hair. She now wears a lacy blouse, blue jeans, and brown boots, and her hair is shoulder length, and now she wears glasses. Her original voice actress was Megan Prescott, and she was replaced by Ella Lentini for the switch to the PlayStation 4 version. And Beth had very short, dark brown hair and wore black jeans, white boots, and a blue jacket, and had a white shirt. She also wore a white hat. In the final version of the game, her hair is now at medium length. She wears a gray half-sleeve sweater. Her hat is now gray, and the jacket is now pink. Beth's original voice actress was Megan Prescott as well, and she was once again replaced by Ella Lentini. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't ever recall them sharing a voice actress, but I guess they're twins, so... Next, we're going to get into the Psycho, which is very interesting. He wore a pale blue shirt and a brown sweater under a dark blue jumpsuit with various bloodstains. He also wore a scarecrow mask. Obviously, in the final version, very similar clothes, except the mask was replaced by the sort of face of a clown with like the teeth exposed. And overall, there's a lot of inspiration from characters such as Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, in that character design of the Psycho. And I think one of the unique things about this killer, because if they had stuck with the scarecrow mask, it would have just been a lot more generic. But this sort of clown porcelain mask, I think, adds so much because it makes you wonder how Josh made it, instead of saying, oh, he went to Spirit Halloween and bought a scarecrow mask. Now we're going to get into the Stranger, also known as Jack Fiddler. He was a bald old man with brown eyes who wore thick clothes, which consisted of a large green hooded jacket over a brown sweater, a blue bandana, a necklace, thick brown pants, and brown boots. He also wore black gloves and a flamethrower. In the final version of the game, he now has protective goggles, his clothes were thinner, his scarf is now red, and he wears a gray hat. He now has medium-length gray hair and stubble, his eyes are now blue, and he has a scar on his right eye. The Wendigos actually didn't change too much. The models themselves have stayed pretty much the exact same. There is some debate on whether or not the PlayStation 3 version of the Wendigos, specifically Hannah's, is thinner in the beginning. However, I don't know, I feel like that's really up for debate because overall, very, very similar. So this has been part one of my look into Until Dawn's early beta version. Next week, we'll be going over the plot of all the episodes, and should be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching. I know this was a little quicker, so I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for watching once again, and have a good evening or morning or, whatever.